So mine is not a very heavy question for you, David, but you've mentioned all these great things you've done, all the media exposure you've gotten, but you haven't talked about the most important impact you've had on the media, which is you're a meme on the internet. You're the living embodiment of WTF on every one of these lolcat type. How does that feel? Why didn't you keep the facial hair so that everyone would recognize you all over the world?
Okay, so there's two questions there. Let me just address the first question. I totally get why didn't I keep the facial hair. I didn't keep the facial hair because it was driving me crazy. The beard was just itchy as hell, and it made me very unhappy, so I shaved it. How do I feel about being the meme? Well, I absolutely love it. I think the fact is that we as a movement have to be very well in touch with the young adults who are running Reddit, with the young adults who are all over the internet, and the fact that they have adopted me, the fact that they have used my face. I've been told that I have a very expressive face, but the fact that they've used it to become an icon, I think it's wonderful, and I endorse it. In fact, if you go on my Facebook fan page right now, it's a colorized version of the black and white meme, and I love it. And maybe someday the beard will come back.
Well, David, can I just help you out here if you're making that sort of decision? Because I have a very intellectual audience who watches my YouTube videos. They make specific comments about these points. Opinion, I think, is pretty much divided, but very slightly in favor of the goatee. Whether
Yes.
we're talking about the Reason Rally, whether you'd be there, and if they came, would they see you with goatee or without? I would say about 60-40 were in favor of the goatee, if that's of any help.
Well,
I
I'll
think
tell you
everyone
what.
can relate to that moment you had with Bill, where he said that thing, and then you had that moment. I think that's what people really respond to, is that moment of, wait, what?
I'll tell you what. If it will attract people to the Reason Rally, if it will get people to the Reason Rally, maybe we can put up a poll somewhere, and I will grow the beard back for the Reason Rally. If we can, I'm not opposed to it. If you want to have some sort of a contest or some sort of a promotion that involves me growing back that horrible itchy thing on my face, I'll be happy to do it and consider it a sacrifice.
Well, I mean, the first one was about secularizing the cross, and that's a terribly double-edged weapon. I mean, from the legal standpoint, I can see that it would be a win, but to have it rubbed in every Christian's face, that when they put their cross on, it's nothing to do with the suffering of Jesus. It's just a secular symbol.
Right.
It's a very double-edged sword, that one. I mean, I can see that, if even if they had won, there would have been a lot of very... if you had actually highlighted the fact that, you can now write secular in big letters across a cross, or have a cross and a big caption underneath, this has nothing to do with the suffering of Jesus. I mean, this would be, the stake in the heart of Dracula, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what we were planning. I mean, I was going to have some fun with it, Thunderfoot. If we had lost that case, I was going to go on television and take a secular cross and dip it in my own urine upside down and say, don't worry, it's not a Christian cross, it's a secular cross.
Love it.
I was going to do all sorts. In fact, one of the domains that American Atheists owns is defacethecross.com. And it's not active. Don't go there. There's no point. But we were all set. We were ready to start defacing some serious crosses for that reason. And it's kind of, I was kind of looking forward to it, but I'm glad we won the case, of course. I will tell you, though, Thunderfoot, that when this case really came to a head, I was invited onto the Catholic Radio Network, which is on satellite radio, and it was a long call-in show, And I got on this show, and of course the Catholic Radio Network, they're nice people, and they said, we're going to disagree with you on this a lot. And I said, I don't think you're going to disagree with me. Once you listen to my side, I think you'll agree with me. And they said, well, okay. And we had a very, very non-confrontational talk, and I pitched my point, and then the callers started calling in. And wouldn't you know, every single caller on the Catholic Radio Network agreed with me, every single one, because they didn't realize that I wasn't fighting against the cops, that I was fighting for their symbol, and they appreciated it. And I was very encouraged by that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the analogous one would be is, for them to claim something equally crazy for the legal forum, that, the words "one nation under God" is not a religious statement.
Yeah. That's one we lost. We as a movement lost that one some time ago. One nation under God is not a religious statement, according to the Supreme Court, which is just insane. I'm sorry, in God we trust is also not a religious statement, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is also insane, which is why you can... in God we trust is not only on the coins, but that's one of those special statements. They can put it in schools. They can put it anywhere they want to, and there's nothing we can do about it short of legislative change, because it was been judged as a secular statement by the Supreme Court. It's one of those things, when people say, well, why are you fighting these little things? Well, it's because now "in God we trust" is the basis for all of the other attacks that we're seeing on the front. This is now the precedent. And when you're talking about the legal issues that are going on, you have to think about precedent. You have to think about, well, first of all, will I win this case? You don't want to lose a case, because when you lose a case, the other side wins a case. You don't want that, okay? So you fight the battles that you can win, and you win them. And if that means...
1,000 cuts, then, incrementally, these battles sum up to actually changing the balance of society on these things.
Yes, and this is why we're doing all of this. This is...
David, could I just ask you a personal question? And I'm going to bring in the first caller, because we've got quite a few people ready and waiting to join us.
Okay.
It's one of the issues I was going to approach from a slightly different angle, but let's see where we go with it. There were quite a few comments. Again, there was a split in opinion on the video that I posted. Some people said that, wow, that's the sort of person we need fighting our corner. Other people thought that your style was a bit aggressive, but you certainly are very, very passionate about it. What is your background so far as religion is concerned? Were you once religious and then leave it? And what's for you the motivating driving force behind what you do?
Patriotism. That's the motivating driving force. I was raised Jewish, but I've always been an atheist. I've never been closeted. I've never been religious. I have dabbled and looked at Judaism seriously. When I was in college, I did a lot of debating, but no, religion never took with me. I never really cared about it. I never took it seriously. I've been an atheist really for my entire life. I remember my first atheistic thought was somewhere around 6 years old in the backseat of my mother's car when I lost Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and God at the same time. The reason I do what I do is all about patriotism. It's all about knowing that religious freedom comes only from this total and absolute separation of church and state, and that every degree we lose in that separation is a degree of freedom that we lose. When the government puts "in God we trust" on the money, we lose some of our religious freedom. When the government makes our kids say "one nation under God," we lose some of our religious freedom. The only way we get freedom is from an absolute separation of church and state, and that's really the crux of what drives me. Now, as to the people who think that I'm too harsh, and some people think that I'm not, this is all good. What we have to realize is that the movement is broad, and that American Atheists is not the only organization in the movement. We are saying what we think. and we're not couching it. And there are some people, some atheists that don't like it. In fact, there are some atheists that don't even like the word atheist. We think they're wrong, but they're still good guys. They're still brothers in arms. They should go to another organization. The American Humanist Association, the Council for Secular Humanism, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, excellent organizations, all of them. They have a different take on things than we do. They are our brothers in arms. And if you look at David Silverman or American Atheists, and you say, you know what, he's consistently too harsh. He's consistently not saying what I want to say. That's fine. Give your money and your effort over to the other organizations in the movement. They deserve it.
Concordance.
So I guess what I share some people's apprehension about a group like American Atheists acting as an anti-religious group, and I think that's how you're getting to be perceived, is you guys are the go-to group when it comes to combating especially Christianity, protesting and fighting in the courts any attempt to bring religion into the public square, Christianity into the public square. And I don't know if the title matches the mission, and I guess that what concerns me is I would want a group about atheism to be about getting the word out about what you believe, or providing support or community for atheists in America. What I worry about is it's become a secular crusade, and that's how you are portrayed in the media, and that plays into the hands of a certain group in the media that would like to portray atheism as only an anti-religious group. What would you say to that? What kind of response do you have to that?
I take exception to the concept of equating being anti-religious to being anti-religious indoctrination between being anti-religious incursion. We fight the fights that need to be fought. That doesn't make us haters. We don't hate religious people. My wife is religious, and we've been married for 20 years. If you don't like the fact that our name is good, well, I can't really argue that. I mean, we're not changing the name. American Atheist is what we do. There are many organizations out there. If the media, specifically if Fox News, portrays us as the bad guys, that's because they're afraid of us, and that's because they're afraid of us telling the truth. They are basically doing a long, continuous straw man argument. Don't listen to them. They're atheists.
Can I pick you up on that point? Because one of the first times that I saw you on Fox News or national television was actually when you were being interviewed about the Christmas poster campaign last year, not this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in particular, you were being asked about the poster that said, "You know it's a myth."
Yep.
What I found troublesome in relation to that was that you seemed to be stating something that I didn't feel comfortable with. That is to say that we know there is no God. Do you think that that's a fair assessment of what you were saying? And if it is, how can you justify that? Because isn't that a question that we could never know?
Of course we can know. Okay, I hate that question. Of course we can know there's no God. Just like we can know there's no Santa Claus. Just like we can know there's no Easter Bunny. We can know there's no God. And I know this gets a lot of people upset because they say, well, the epistemological definition of knowledge means that you have to know everything. Well, that's crap. Okay, and that's really crap. When it comes down to it, we have the word know in our language for a reason. Okay, and that's because we have enough information to make a decision that we can use certainty with. Do I know I'm sitting here in my house? Well, technically speaking, I could be in a dream. Technically speaking, I could be hooked up to the Matrix somewhere, and this could all be a dream, so I don't know that I'm sitting here in my room. That's crap. I'm here, and there's no Easter Bunny, and there's no God, and there never was a God, and when Santa Claus lands on my roof with his sleigh, I'll say, wow, I knew there was no Santa Claus, but I was wrong. But you know what? When that happens, you can shove that in my face. When God shows himself, you can say, aha, Dave, you were wrong. But no, the answer is we know there is no God just as much as we know anything about which we say we know something. And that's something that I think we need to make sure that people say, that people understand. We shouldn't make excuses for being indefinite about something as ridiculous as a deity.
Concordance.
So I think you have to make the argument, and what strikes me is you're veering into what I would call irrational atheism. Atheism that has the same rock-hard dogmatic zealotry that religion has. It is sure of itself, and it presents itself with a kind of arrogance, and that is what turns people off to the movement. People think, I am not that kind of person, and I think you can actually hurt the movement by not giving a compelling argument for what you consider to be ridiculous. Ridiculous can be a term that means I have no specific reason not to agree. I have no logic behind my argument. Ridiculous can be a real cop-out when the onus is on us, in some cases, to say, I choose not to believe because. And not answering that question and focusing on, you should agree with me, without taking that path that so many non-believers take through skepticism and agnosticism. I cannot know. I am not sure. I provisionally accept. I think it makes you look as dogmatic as the fundamentalist religious people can be.
Well, I appreciate that opinion, but I fundamentally disagree. I think that saying I don't know is in itself a cop-out. I think that the people who are too afraid to say, well, I know there is no Santa Claus, but I don't know that there is no God, yet I am unable to say why one is different from the other. I'm unable to say, I know there's no Zeus and I know there's no God, Yahweh, Jehovah, but I can't differentiate why. I think that's on our problem. I think that's on our side. And I think that's on I think that's in our movement to be saying, hey, you know what? It's not dogmatism to say what you know. It's not, we're not being fanatical. If God shows himself at all, any God shows himself ever at all, I'll quit my job and I'll find something else to do. And that's not dogmatism. Okay. That's honesty. That's integrity. And when somebody says, well, you can't know, they are the ones that are copping out, because we can know that there is no God just as surely as we can know there's no Zeus, just as surely as we can know there's no Santa Claus. But the people who say, well, you can't know there's no God are just basically copping away. They're the ones who are chickening out from saying what they know without giving a rational explanation why they can say something about one God but not all the others.
David, I'm going to have to do a Fox News on you and interrupt you. I know that two of the other members of the panel want to make points about this. We're going to start with Aaron, then Thunder, and then we're going to take Remy, who's been very patiently waiting to join us. Aaron, then Thunder.
Yes, our caller has been very patient, and I appreciate that. I got to say, though, on the whole Gnostic opinion, while I want to believe with you, and I understand that Zomgitz also shares your opinion, we feel perfectly safe in saying that there are no leprechauns, and we feel perfectly safe in saying that there are no Santa Claus, and things of that sort. But when people when people come to me and say, "Oh, I know that 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 I know there's a God." No. Being convinced of a delusion does not change the fact that it is a delusion. If you allow for the possibility that a God could reveal itself as being a wholly deceptive organism that has been hiding all this time on purpose with all these divine powers of concealment, and then reveals itself, you would say, oh, well, I thought there was no God. But you can't say that you know there's no God, because knowledge, as I define it, as I understand it, if you don't know something, if you can't show something, then you don't know it. So when you say you know there is a God, that means that you can show that there is a God. And if you can't show it, you don't know it. It's just a belief. I gave a speech about this to the atheist community of Austin, what we can and cannot honestly say we know. And in that speech, I brought up Carl Sagan, who refused to allow the atheist title to be applied to him, because he said an atheist knows there's no God. An atheist knows a whole lot more than I do. He refused to make the Gnostic statement. Everybody knows that Carl Sagan was an atheist. Sadly, Carl Sagan did not know that he was an atheist.
Okay, I'm going to move on, Thunder, and then to the caller.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the time you get drawn into this level of pedantry in the arguments, you are losing effectiveness. And I think you've got to deconvolute these two things in that what is the actual best, most honest, most the argument that you can make with most integrity, and what is the most efficient argument. Those aren't the same thing. I think the harsh reality is that the atheist organizations have limited resources. And if you pitch a very bland, very vanilla message that doesn't offend anyone, then all right, it will be integrated into how people view things. But the thing is that when you actually get people to scratch, so to speak, if you can get someone like Fox News to bring you on, because you put up a billboard which costs I don't know, a few tens of thousands of dollars or something, that amplifier, that access to audience actually is far more, that gives your message far more impact than making it vanilla and academically rigorous and all these other things. And obviously, if you go too far on this, if you become too shrill, if you become too offensive, then it becomes counterproductive, and you get into this sort of agricultural effect. So there is a balance to be had here, and whilst I would agree with concordance that there is an argument with the greatest integrity, with the greatest rigor and all that sort of thing, ironically, that is not the most effective argument to pitch.